family. I'm trying to get the last few things together. Man. Oh. Oh shoot, my bad. I forget. Oh shit. Um, yeah. All right, there we go. All right, that right there. A little hot. There we go. We should be good now. So glad to be back with you. We haven't had a real book club in a couple of weeks. So I'm extra excited to be back for book club back in the setup. I gotta rub my feet. All right. Hope that means you get cozy too. So I was glad to be back Tuesday and do the show in the studio. Um, I really have been enjoying Ego, so I missed it for a little while. I don't know, man. My camera seems clear, or something. I don't know. But again, it was a great discussion. I've been having fun traveling, but tired. I'm glad to be home. Dallas was interesting, to say less. It was not what I expected, but interesting nonetheless. The food could have been better. I definitely ran into somewhat of an oxymoron. It was like sweater and shorts. So all the restaurants that had high ratings didn't have the best tasting food, and the places that had lower ratings had better tasting food. Also, it was funny, the stuff that was lower rated also tasted fresher, which was interesting. The higher rated stuff, you can tell if you had fresh tomatoes, you know when they've been packaged or traveled a long time. Atlanta was Atlanta. Traffic, food was better than Dallas for sure, but Atlanta was Atlanta. I stayed in Buckhead almost every time I've gone to Atlanta, so nothing new about that. I did pick up a pair of shoes though. I'm crunk about them. I haven't worn them yet. I don't know when I'm gonna bust them out. Uh, they almost worthy of a new fit. You dig? So, if this is your first time here on Soul Swami Live, what we do here is discuss healing in all its various forms, but ultimately the evolution of us becoming the best version of ourselves. All right, thanks for the love, Facebox. Um, and we do that to create a collective energy that we can tap into and allow us to connect with other people that's on the same path with us, trying to be the best version of themselves. And yeah, so we got a show every Tuesday and Thursday. 7 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday is our learning day, and then Thursday is a spinoff of our Tuesday in an effort to allow us to reconnect with that childlike energy in us by allowing someone to read to us. And again, it's every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I used to do it on TikTok too, but literally every single time I did it on TikTok, they banned my show. So I feel like, well, now I feel like, come to find out that healing is considered one of their against community standard type words. So, and we use that word all the time over here. But generally every week, we're not on the heart. What we on? I know we are on our. I got yellow lights on. Give me a second, family. All right. So, generally, as I was saying, every week we do a little bit of energy work on a different chakra or energy focal point of our body. And this week we are on the solar plexus, which resides right here. Okay. Out. In your stomach. The element for it is fire. And if you are in the color therapy, the color is yellow. So you want to wear some yellow, eat some yellow, spend some time in yellow light. Do those things that help activate the energy. Solar plexus is good for your sense of power, your personal power, your strength, your ego, your confidence, and your self-esteem. If you are into essential oils and aromatherapy, you want to think lemon, cedarwood, juniper, ginger, and lemongrass. If you are into crystals and gemstones, you want to think citrine, which this is citrine. Every Tuesday night I wind up talking about it, but they don't get to see it because I don't get up and get it. So it sits here for us family, our Thursday night show. What you want to think? Citrine, tiger's eye, topaz, sunstone, pyrite, yellow jasper. All of those are very good for activating the energy of your solar plexus. Yeah. I was just sitting here thinking about how often I allowed the solar plexus to make decisions for me. even when it comes down to food. Yeah, interesting. All right, so the next thing we do is a little bit of sound therapy. I'm going to just do the bowl tonight. We'll leave the rain sticks, the rain drum, wave drums, drums, ukulele. I need to bust out the ukulele again, keep it real. But we're gonna do the bowl tonight. And during this time, all you really have to do is just relax, clear yourself of the energy of today, the stressors of the day, and put yourself in a space where you can relax and enjoy book club. After sound therapy, we will do breath work and affirmations, and then we get started on the story. And I promise you, I don't remember where we are in that story, cause man, listen, we hadn't done the book in weeks, so I don't know what's going on. We're gonna find out together, family. But again, during this time, just relax. All right, next is our breath work. So I think we're gonna keep with the same theme that we had earlier this week, which was box breathing. We did 444. If you are unfamiliar with box breathing, again, it is 444. That means you breathe in 4-4 count, you hold 4-4 count, and then you exhale for a 4 count. But during this time, all you really have to do is just listen to the sound of my voice, and I will guide us through. The breath work. So again, continue to shift your energy and relax to get in the space of book club. So on the count of 3, family, we'll start with box breathing. Again, that is 444. And listen to the sound of my voice. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 2, 3, 4. Release 4, 2, 3, 4. Now I want you to repeat these affirmations after me. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. I honor myself. I am confident. I act with courage. I am a powerful being. I am motivated, persistent, and successful. And I honor myself. All right, before we get started, lest I remind you, don't forget, you can get a copy of The 7 Spaces of Healing for yourself. It is a good foundational starting point to help you conceptualize 7 spaces that you need to cultivate within yourself and to make sure that you are a part of, to help you during your evolution of becoming the best version of you. You want a space for love, a space for healing, a space for solitude, a space for trust, a space for risk without judgment, a space for accountability, a space for forgiveness. You can get The 7 Spaces of Healing on Amazon right now. So support yourself, support the channel, support your family. Do your thing. All right, where we at? The rain's starting trying to kick up. Sorry. Listen, I was thirsty. I worked out today, so actually, well, it's funny because I was getting ready to say I've been slacking, but I ain't really been slacking. So slacking to me, I guess, is not doing my routine of 2 on, 1 off. So if I gotta go 1 on, 1 off, I feel weird. Or if I gotta do 1 on, 2 off, 2 on, 1 off, then if it goes outside of that, I feel weird. But as long as I get a minimum for me, well, I still feel comfortable. It's 4 days out the week. As long as I can go 4 days, but generally I go 5 days out the week. So that's what I like. That's what my body like too. So I don't know where we are. Okay, I remember Apollo and Emma were outside of the cave where they used to leave the babies, and yeah, I don't even know what. I don't know what was going on. Yeah, I guess they waiting right in front of the cave, um, for the monster that lives in the cave, or hoping to still find their baby, or something like that. But I had to go back a little bit, confused. Anyway, we are on chapter 95. Mm-mm. Emma and Apollo stood over the body of Jorgen Knudsen. It had actually surprised Apollo to return to this house and find the old Viking still dead on the kitchen floor, utility knife still stuck in his throat. He'd been anticipating in some way that wasn't conscious, returning to find Jorgen up and pouring himself another of his insured cocktails. No matter how much the old man deserved killing, such a thing still cost. Seeing the body, the blood already dried on his clothes, the floor, even droplets of it on the ceiling, and the table where Apollo cut the cabbage, made Apollo blink wildly, as if he'd never washed Jorgensen's blood off his face. He would probably always feel that stain of it until his last day. Oh yeah, it is monsooning out there. One of my clients, I had to meet with a client today, and they couldn't do it because they said it was storming bad in their area, and they had to do some repairs. Wild thought, wild thought. So, and I guess it just made its way over here. Nevertheless, this much reality still held. Dead was dead. Jorgen Knudsen lived no more. The only surprise here was Emma. She stared at the body and tapped her throat. I made him do that, she said. Maybe Apollo didn't expect the shock, really. Think of it all she'd experienced so far, but she discussed Jorgensen's wound, his death so casually, like a bit of home improvement, a tasteful choice for the backsplash above the kitchen counters. I wouldn't let him sleep, Emma said, without passion. I wouldn't give him any peace. Every night I slipped inside his head and made him listen. They'd retrieved the suitcase on the way back to Jorgen's house, taking the same path she led him on the night before, but in reverse. The suitcase lying right there in the underbrush, like the last piece of luggage at the baggage carousel. He scooped it up and pulled it along with him, but at this point, it had been too heavy. Though he thought he'd been loath to do it in front of Emma, Apollo unzipped the suitcase and slipped out the grave marker. She watched him but didn't speak about it. He set the grave marker there in the woods, and this felt appropriate. The changeling had been born nearby. Where better to commemorate his passing? To this day, there's a bronze grave marker with the name Brian Kagawa hidden in the forest. Meanwhile, Emma and Apollo returned to Jorgen's kitchen. He showed up with food every night, she said. He thought he could appease me. You know how much sheep's head I've eaten? Last night I'd had enough. I made him bring me Starbucks. That's the reason, Apollo asked. You just wanted a different meal? Emma watched him quietly for a moment and pursed her lips, a look that verged on the playful. Why else would I do it, she asked. She kicked at one of Jorgensen's limp legs. You don't know the things this man has done in his life, said Apollo. He told me some of it. She tapped the temple. I saw it. All of it. Let's go upstairs, Apollo said. Emma looked at the ceiling, then back at him, wary but ready. What's up there? A bathroom, a tub. Apollo ran water. He tried to unzip her coat, but the zipper had frozen or rusted up by her neck long ago. He left her in the bathroom and went down to the kitchen and found scissors in a drawer. He stepped carefully over Jorgen's body so he wouldn't slip in the blood. Upstairs, he cut the old coat off her. The puffy fabric fell from her, stiff as a beetle's shell. Emma had always been a small woman, but without the coat, she appeared whittled down to a pine needle's width. Strangely, this didn't make her seem weak. Imagine the coat falling away and revealing a single plutonium rod underneath. The clothes, on the other hand, had nearly bonded to her skin. He tried to pull at the sleeves of the wool sweater, and they crumbled between his fingers. Her jeans were nothing more than long strips of denim that came off in the faded blue ribbons when he tugged at them. Her socks couldn't be slipped off her feet. They would have to come off when she stepped in the tub, so rotten they'd dissolve in the water. He turned off the faucet. It was only when he leaned close, right up against her skin, that her smell overpowered the Bavarian coat coating his skin. The smell, so tart from dried sweat and long lack of soap that Apollo's eyes hurt when he leaned into her and picked her up. Ready for the water? Apollo asked, but Emma didn't answer. She stared at the bathroom mirror and maybe for the first time in 4 months saw her reflection. She couldn't look away. Who is that? She whispered. He leaned over the tub and let her down. The water turned into a murky, almost greenish sludge seconds after she was immersed. Months of filth floated off her body. Apollo lifted the plunger and let the water drain, then refilled the tub. It took 3 refills before the water stopped turning dirty. Then Apollo found a cloth, and a bar of soap and washed Emma's body. They were in the bathroom for 2 hours. All right, good. That stopped pretty quick. When they finished, Emma couldn't really stand. It was as if the bath had also scraped away some armor she constructed, an exoskeleton. He carried her into the largest bedroom, what he assumed had been Jorgensen's bedroom, though the bed clearly hadn't been slept in. No indent in the sheets or the pillows. Emma had been keeping the old man awake for a long time. Maybe he'd stopped coming into this room at all. This wasn't the room where Apollo found a clean wardrobe. This meant he was wearing kindergartner's clothes. He pulled back the covers and laid Emma on the bed. There were two space heaters in the bedroom. Neither one turned on, so the room felt chilly. He spun each one's black dial. Late morning light curled in through the two windows at the head of the bed and clarified just how gray, how bloodless Emma's skin had become. She looked like a body that had been dug out of ice. Cleaning her up actually made Emma look worse. As a witch, she had been imperilous. She walked in a blue cloud of power and being for whom the trees parted and the woods whispered. The woman on the mattress now nearly got lost in the bed sheets. She should have been hooked up to an IV and put on bed rest for 6 weeks. She hadn't spoken once since Apollo ran the bath. Emma appeared more lost than she'd been out in the forest. Had he done more harm than good by bringing her back? Apollo pulled the covers over her and returned to the first floor. There were clothes in the suitcase he'd brought, a change for Emma and for Brian, and he thought maybe seeing the clothes would return her focus. He didn't know what else to do. In the kitchen, he found Jorgen's body once more, but being alone with it again, he had to steady himself against the counter. This was when he felt the powerful, cold thought, the house. He stepped into the hall. That damn front door had been open all night. He walked down the hall. The whole first floor felt frigid, a place gone as silent as a tomb. He shut the front door and turned off the porch light. He dragged the suitcase up the stairs and unpacked nearly everything, even the mattock. He showed her the clothes he'd picked for her, but her eyes remained focused on the ceiling, unfocused, dazed. Apollo checked the small zippered side pocket of the suitcase, the faint bulge suggesting something he'd overlooked. He'd found the packet of bendy straws and the bottle of massage oil, the last of the labor kit. Apollo took up the faintly yellow liquid and shook it, unscrewed the cap and smelled. Pure almond oil. Emma had packed this suitcase over a year ago, so it was as though she'd packed a small gift for herself. He pulled the covers away from Emma and poured a dollop of the almond oil into one hand. He moved to the bottom of the bed and brought two hands around Emma's right foot. He squeezed her foot and rubbed the almond oil across her skin until it soaked in. The skin looked no richer or softer, no less gray. He poured more oil into his hand and rubbed it into the bottom of the same foot, pressing at the heel and running his thumb all the way up to the toes. When he finished the first foot, he moved on to the other and continued upward across her legs and along her sides. When he finished, she rolled onto her side facing him, but still didn't say a word. Apollo brought the blanket up to the bridge of her nose. Her hair had tightened into its curls as it dried. The two of them stayed in a moody silence for 10 minutes or 10 years. "I should have believed you," Apollo eventually said. Two fingers appeared at the top of the sheet and pulled the fabric below her chin. "I wouldn't have believed you either," she said, "if it had been the other way around." Apollo tapped her fingers gently. "We're together now," he said. She nodded quietly, then locked her gaze with his as she pulled the bed sheets back for him to see her. Her skin showed like burnished brass now. She held the sheet open for him. He hadn't felt this nervous since he'd been 15. When he took off his clothes, the scent of Brenovan filled the room, as if the odor had seeped through his clothes and into his skin. But in the moment, it hardly mattered. He slipped inside Emma, and she dropped the sheet around them both. So long since they'd kissed each other, he'd forgotten the goodness of her lips, the soft slope of her long, narrow throat. He climbed on top of her, and to his happy surprise, she wrestled him for the position. She laughed with him when her forehead bumped his chin. She humped against his thigh and climbed higher along him. They made love until they fucked. What? They fucked until they were spent. When they were finished, they came to rest with their heads near the window so the sunlight bathed both of their faces. A comfortable silence. They lingered in it. This short reprieve. Emma rested a hand against Apollo's chest and patted it twice. She rose on an elbow and kissed his shoulder. He raised his left arm and brought his hand to her ribs, but before he could touch them, she grabbed his wrist. She turned his hand so she could see his finger. Did you make a wish with this? She asked. I did, but I'm ashamed of it now. Why don't you wear it until you can put your real ring back on? Apollo lowered his hand. I threw it into the East River. She clapped a hand to his chin and squeezed it a little too tightly. You're going to have a real hard time finding it there. Apollo laughed. You'd make me do it too. She brought her nose to his rib cage, sniffing theatrically. Smells like you've already been there. It was Jorgensen's favorite cologne, Apollo said. Go take a bath, she said. I need to sleep just a little bit before it becomes night. Apollo slipped out the bed and pulled the covers over her. He did need a bath, but there were even more important things that needed to be done. He picked through a pile of his clothes and found the phone in his coat pocket. Emma had already fallen asleep. He went downstairs with the phone. When Emma woke up, they were going back into the forest, and this time marching into that cave. Maybe he'd give her a knife that killed Jorgen, or he could heft the mattock, but suppose they never make it back out. Anna Sophie haven't, and neither had all those children. Who knew how many other bodies had been lost down there? He didn't want to disappear without saying goodbye to his mother. He turned on the phone and dialed Lillian. Mom, he said when Lillian picked up. Apollo? Apollo? She whispered when she spoke because it was either that or choke up and say nothing. How are you? Happy to hear your voice, she said. Emma's upstairs. Emma slept. Apollo walked to the front door and almost opened it casually as if this were their home, and he'd called for a weekly check-in with his mother. Things have gotten pretty wild, Apollo said, the line in true achievement and understatement. I left you alone, Lillian said quickly. I left you alone, and that's when things went bad. Apollo leaned against the door. He'd only meant to say goodbye, but now he shut his eyes as if Lillian were about to tell him a bedtime story. The last time we talked, you were so angry at me. I understood why, but I've been thinking and thinking about everything you said, everything I said. There's so much never explained. I guess I hope I would never have to. What does that mean? You were so young, Lillian said softly. I prayed you'd just forget. Then I started having the nightmares. She sighed on the line. Yes. And even then I pretended that's all they were. But why? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking. What was the point pretending my dad didn't come back for me? A longer silence now. So long, Apollo thought she'd hung up the line. He pulled the phone from his ears, but the battery still had plenty of power, and the two of them hadn't been disconnected. I got to know that lawyer, Mr. Blackwood, once I'd been at the job for a few years. We didn't become friends, but if you work with people long enough, you're going to have a few conversations. At some point, he told me why he'd been so hard on me in the beginning, forcing me to come work on Saturdays. And do you know, he had a whole story about how he was trying to help me. The firm was going to be letting go of staff, and as the newest hire, I'd be the first one fired. But if I'd learned enough about how the firm worked, prove myself a hard worker by coming in on weekends, they'd probably consider me valuable enough to keep. That's what he said. Maybe that was true, but it certainly wasn't the only reason that man forced me to continue to firm on Saturdays. I knew it, and I thought he knew it too. But by the third or fourth time he told me that story, I realized he did believe his version. If you asked him, he never he if he'd ever pressure me for a date, he'd swear it never happened. The fact had left his mind. He had done me a favor, and look, 5 years later, I still worked at the firm and even had 2 promotions. He was trying to tell how grateful I should be. I'm not saying he lied, not exactly, but the whole story was more flattering to himself. So, with some time and distance, that's the story he chose to believe. I'm realizing that by telling you nothing about your father, I might have been doing the same thing, not just for myself, but for him. Just tell me what happened, Apollo said. He stood straight now and began to pace, but Jorgen Knutson's kitchen lay directly ahead, and in that kitchen lay a man he had killed. He didn't want to hear the story while staring at a dead man. He stopped moving and braced himself against the door that led into the den. I came home from work at 1, Lillian began. I brought some McDonald's for us. I felt guilty, and you liked the French fries, but when I reached home, the front door wasn't locked. Already that was very strange. I heard the bath running. I panicked, dropped all my things, and thought you had gotten yourself in there, and what if you had drowned or something? I ran in the bathroom and opened the door and saw the ugliest thing I've ever known. She stopped talking. It even sounded like she stopped breathing. Brian had you, I can't say it, Apollo. I want to hear it, Apollo told her, though he wasn't quite sure. He had taken off your clothes, and he had you in the tub. I thought you said the water was hot, steaming. It was, she said. He had his hands on your chest, and he had you under the water, and you were kicking and crying because the water was burning your skin. Apollo's hand slipped, and he slid down to the floor. What? Your father tried to kill you, Lillian said. And when I came home, he planned to kill me, then himself. Why? Apollo whispered. I told you. I wanted a divorce. I was leaving him and taking you with me. Your father had a terrible childhood. His mother and father were awful people. He wanted family so badly. He wanted to make up for everything he'd missed. He'd been telling himself stories about how it would be since he was 12 years old. But 12-year-olds don't understand adulthood. Even when he became a man, he still thought like a child. He couldn't change, couldn't adapt. I served him with divorce papers, but he had other plans. Apollo sat with his back against the door, but I always thought, he said, the stuff in the box, the book. Your father lived in terror that he'd lose you. That's what the whole book is about. When he was young, he didn't have an idol who would come save him. He always felt like the goblins who had stolen him and raised him, and no one came to bring him back. That's why he had it. He wanted to read it to you. He was always going to come for you. He loved you with all his heart, and he tried to take your life. I'm sorry, Apollo, but both of those things are true. She cleared her throat. Her voice became the steadiest it had been the whole call. You have the right to think whatever you like about him and about me, but at least you'll know it all. That's the only way to understand anything. Apollo pressed his free hand over his eyes. I'm amazed anyone survives childhood, he said. Apollo, you hear me? I want you to know that no matter who your father became, you're not him. I'm proud of the man you turned out to be. He looked up at the ceiling, rested his head against the door. I spent my whole life chasing him, he said, but you're the one who was always there. I was where I wanted to be, she whispered. What happened to him? Apollo asked. I mean, after you found us, I'm sure he wouldn't just apologize and walk away. You think a man is going to hurt my child and I'll just see him to the door? Did you call the cops? Apollo asked. No, she said. They weren't needed. I stepped into that bathroom. I saw my son in danger, and I turned into something else. She went silent. Where is he now? Do you have any idea? I know exactly where Brian West is, Lillian said. He's where I left him. Apollo held the phone to his ear, expecting to reveal more, but instead she said, You sound tired. Are you eating? Do you want to come over and I'll make you dinner? He laughed hoarsely. I'll eat something soon, he said, but I don't want to come over very soon. Apollo began to form words. Emma is here with me, but before he could say them, he realized how cold the first floor felt, even here by the den's door. He told his mother he had to go, hung up, and opened the door. The room looked exactly as it did a day ago, but that didn't mean the room was unchanged. He walked inside shivering. The space heaters weren't on. No heat, no sparking, sputtering, rattling, clattering. He stooped in front of one of them. All three were cool to the touch. Maybe a fuse had blown, but when he turned the dials, each one lit up and hummed. The fuses were fine. That meant last night someone had came in the house and turned the heaters off. For sure. Chapter 97. Apollo knelt in front of the space heaters and Emma stood beside him. She pulled the top sheet off the bed as she came down the stairs behind him, and now she coiled it around one shoulder and draped it over the other so it looked like she wore an off-white sari. If they turned this off, then they must have seen Jorgen, right? It seemed impossible someone would miss a 70-year-old man with a knife lodged in his throat. He's in the kitchen, Emma said, and down on the floor, so maybe not. But the blood, Apollo said. She put a hand on the back of Apollo's neck, and the touch soothed him. If they didn't come in through the back, they might not even known he was there. But that would mean kindergarten came in here just to turn off the space heaters. Apollo said, why would he do that? What? Apollo waved an arm. William Wheeler, I mean. And who's William Wheeler? Emma asked. Apollo actually laughed when she said this, like maybe she'd just been fucking with him. But of course, how would she know? Good God, the man at the center of all this misery might as well be a phantom to her, an avatar on the screen and nothing more. He's the man that sent you those texts to your phone that made him disappear. Oh, she said, I didn't imagine it. Apollo explained as much as he could, as quickly as he could, right there in the den, how kindergartner had even infiltrated Patricia's machine, hidden inside the hard drive, lurking. He's a troll too, Emma said. Her face tightened with anger, and she threw one arm out. She needed to strike something just then, and the only opportune targets was the Japanese panels in the middle of the room. She hit one, and when it fell, the other panel fell too. They landed with two muted thumps because of the shag carpeting, but they raked the far wall and brought down 20 or 30 of the children's portraits hanging there. Emma pointed. What is all this? She asked. Though she had been haunting Jorgen's head, she hadn't ever been in his home. Apollo didn't know where to begin, so he walked to the far end of the right room and pointed to a small ink rendering. This is Agnes Nutsetter, he began. She was the first child. I don't know the name of most of the other kids, but kindergarten's daughter must be here. Her name was Agnes, too. She stepped closer to the wall. She brought a hand to her mouth and scanned every face. Then she looked down and saw the frames that had fallen. She bent and picked up two, hung them back on the wall, then dropped her hands. All those mothers, she whispered. This is an evil home. Emma went to the space heaters and turned all three back on. Once their coils glowed orange, she tipped each one over face down on the shag carpeting. That's going to start a fire, Apollo said. I hope so, she said. Jorgen's home stood alone on this lot. Driveways between it and the houses on either side. Room enough, he hoped, to prevent a blaze from spreading before the fire department would arrive. Quickly, they moved through the rest of the first floor, shutting all the windows. They used the month's years worth of newspapers and circulars on the dining room table like kindling, crowding the papers around the space heaters, then placed more around the two rooms so the fire would spread. Then back to the den. She pointed at the suitcase. "Show me the clothes that you brought me," she said. Apollo set out on the carpet as Emma undid the sheet she wore. After dressing, she raided the closet in the hall and found a heavy parka with a fur-lined hood. She had to fold each sleeve up twice, and the bottom of the parka came down just below her knees. Now she wore Jorgen's clothes, and Apollo wore Williams. They had become the Knudsons, burning down an ancestral home. Mm, that's interesting. Already the carpet beneath them began to stink as it singed. The first traces of smoke could be seen in the den. Now the suitcase had nearly emptied. The only thing left were the mattock and Brian's outfit. Apollo took the former, Emma the latter. They left the den and walked through the kitchen. Jorgen's body remained pinned to the cabinet like a butterfly on display. "When this house goes up in flames, he's going to get a Viking funeral," Apollo said. "Better than he deserves," Emma said. Apollo sat down the mattock and leaned close to the body one last time, but he wasn't planning some sentimental goodbye. His fingerprints were on the handle of the knife. The house might burn, but whoever knew what might survive. At the very least, he should take the murder weapon. He grabbed it and tugged it, but the tip lodged deep. Apollo had to plant a foot against the head, against the dead man's chest to yank it out. Jorgen's body flapped down on the side, making a dull thud. Emma had already gone out the back entrance. Apollo and Emma walked alongside the house. From the street, no one would guess at the arson inside. Not yet. Meanwhile, the interior of Jorgen Knudson's home had already filled with the fog. Shutting the windows, slipping a few of the circulars under the front door had helped to turn the place into a smoke box. The lack of windows in the den meant even a nosy neighbor wouldn't see the flames until they spread. By then, it would be too late to save the place. They were halfway down the drive when they were bathed in light, bright as a brilliant idea. The motion sensors had done their job again, capturing them. But this time, Apollo didn't flee or freeze up. In the middle of the day, the light wouldn't even have been noticeable to people across the street, or even on the other side of the alleyway. He and Emma stopped at that curious door. No handle, no locks. "Look at that," Emma said. A hip level, a faint handprint. "That's blood," Apollo said. Emma pressed the door, but it didn't move. "What's down there?" she asked. "I never got in," he said. "If the old man kept pictures in the den, what do you think he might be hiding in the basement?" She didn't speak again, but pointed at the mattock in his hand. He lifted it and slipped the adze in between the door and the frame. He looked across the street and behind him, no neighbors watching. He pulled the back and the wood squawked loudly. He didn't hesitate, moving the adze, lower and yanking it again. And third time lower, and the door lifted off its hinges and fell back. Apollo pushed it further so they can get inside. A long staircase led down into a basement. They remained there at the threshold, silent, and heard the faintest tapping sound. Another moment, and they heard it again. "I'm going to activate Subject 12. You guys will like this one." A man's voice. Apollo recognized it. He gestured down with the mattock. As they descended, He felt heat from the floorboards above their heads. Yeah, we'll do maybe one more chapter, maybe two. Chapter 98. A boiler, a washing machine, and a dryer. 6 cans of paint so old their lids had oxidized, and an air mattress with a comforter heaped in a pile on top. One thin pillow, 2 garbage bags containing a jumble of clothes fit for a stocky middle-aged man, a black ergonomic office chair, a computer desk, a computer system, exactly perfectly the same as the one Patrice had built in his basement apartment, and an iPad propped up against one of the monitors. The iPad showed a photo of an infant cradled in a man's hand, and kindergarten was down there too. He sat in the office chair, staring at the middle of the screen of his rig, a pair of giant headphones on his ears, droplets of blood stains on the floorboard beneath his seat. This is the place in Charleston, Williams said, as if answering someone's question. He laughed softly. No, I will not give you the address. Only paid subscribers get the platinum access. Apollo and Emma watched this man in a choked silence. Kindergartner had slipped a camera into the home of the family in Charleston, South Carolina. 5 people, a father, 2 grandparents, and 2 teenage girls, fitted around an expansive kitchen preparing breakfast. And he watched them from here in Queens. Not only had kindergarten found a way in their homes, it seemed like the camera wasn't even well hidden. The perspective suggested something right at the counter level. The kind of thing at least one of the people in the kitchen should see, but all 5 appeared oblivious. Worse than Worse was the moment when the grandfather came right up to the camera, leaned close, looked into the lens with no apparent concern. He raised one finger and typed slowly occasionally, looking up at the camera. This was when Apollo and Emma realized what was going on. It's their laptop, Apollo said. He turned their own laptop into a camera. Both of them tensed now, waiting for kindergarten to hear them, but with those headphones on, the man had no idea they were there. He turned his computer station into a kind of sensory-deprived tank. With the steam, Apollo realized kindergartner must have done the same thing with Patrice's computer. Apollo, Dana, and Patrice had been in the basement playing the video of Emma's escape while kindergartner, quiet as you may please, watched them. He felt weariness weighing down his eyelids. You can never outthink these guys. Now Apollo noticed the other screens, the ones that weren't spawned inside some middle-class kitchen. On each, there were 4 smaller boxes, and in each box, a man sat at the desk. Each face was captured in the greenish reflective light of his computer screen. Each man wore headphones, just like kindergartner. Each had a small microphone arm extended from their right ear cup. They could have been a crew of online buddies playing a video game, but instead of pillaging a dungeon or fighting some simulated war, they were invading the family's home together. A bit of harmless fun. I didn't think I can stay up that long, kindergarten said. Come on, man, we've been at it for like 8 hours. I'm crashing. Apollo and Emma stood immobilized. No, kindergarten said. The mother's in Chicago. She's staying at the Renaissance Blackstone Hotel. 2 more nights. Quiet for a moment, he leaned forward as one of the men in the small boxes spoke. Apollo watched his lips move. Yup, kindergarten said. The dad is a true beta cuck. The mom is fugly, but the girl's all right for now. But you just know if the mom looks like that, the girls are going to turn just fat when they grow up. Emma snatched the Matic from Apollo. That's enough, she said. She swung the Matic at kindergarten sideways, more like a bat, so the sharp ends of the head weren't aimed at his flesh. She wasn't being gentle. The Matic had just turned out to be heavier than she expected. It connected at shoulder level, sending kindergartner out of his chair. He fell sideways, and the chair came down with him. A puddle spread out on the basement floor when he landed. The chair had been collecting his spilled blood. Okay. It was as if a jar of raspberry jam had just been shattered. His headphones flew off. The man actually yipped like a puppy. He looked up to find Emma standing there and Apollo right behind her. Fuck, he said, but he didn't move. He couldn't. The right side of his sweatshirt showed with dried blood. Emma, realizing her mistake from the first swing, turned the Matic so the pick end forced kindergartner. She leaned back and raised the weapon. No, 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 he shouted. I can help. Emma brought the Matic down. The pick end pierced kindergarten's collar, and now the man screeched, small and shrill like a bat. The tip of the pick lodged just above his clavicle. His legs thrashed. Apollo flinched, remembering Jorgen's last moments in the kitchen upstairs. Emma pressed one foot on kindergarten's chest and cracked the Matic free. Kindergartner's eyes swam in his head and found Apollo. Please, he pleaded, control your wife. Dang, that's a wild thing to say. Okay. Emma raised the Matic again and brought the pick down. This time it landed in his chest. The sharp edge sank in about an inch, lodged in the pectoralis major. What? Pectoralis major. You don't beg him, she said. You beg me. Kindergarten nodded. He tried to raise his arms and bring his hands together beseechingly, but they were trembling too much. Besides, there was still the matter of having the Matic stuck in him. Please, kindergartner said. I know I've done you wrong, but please don't kill me. He panted before he could speak again. I have a daughter of my own, and she just lost her mother. Emma placed a foot on his collar and pressed hard as he spat and choked and howled. While she wrenched the Matic free again, blood seeped out of his room. Apollo touched his arm. I didn't know you were going to do that. I didn't know either, she said. Apollo reached for the Matic, but she wouldn't let it go. He didn't fight for it. He just stooped closer to kindergarten. Your father is dead, he said. He meant to hurt him. I know, kindergartner said. I saw him. And you just left him there, Apollo asked. Kindergarten brought one hand to his sweatshirt, pressing against the second wound, the larger one. He's been suicidal for months. I came upstairs to get something to eat, and then he's just there on the kitchen floor. I figured he'd finally gone through with it all the way. He blew out his breath. It was kind of a relief, honestly. Apollo almost felt over. Even Emma seemed shocked. Damn, she said. I mean, I was going to call the cops eventually, but I was in the middle of something down here, so I came back to it. It's not like he was going anywhere, right? Well, why you just leave the front door open, Emma asked. Now kindergarten shifted, trying to raise himself. I came in from the back. Was the front door open? But he would only do that if he was trying to warn me you were here, kindergarten said. Did you two kill my dad? Apollo looked up at Emma, then back at kindergarten. We did, he said. Kindergarten nodded. Well, thanks. Apollo, to his own surprise, jabbed the finger directly into the hole in kindergarten's chest. This made the man pop upright. The pain would have made him jump right to his feet if Emma hadn't stepped on one of his ankles. He tried to protect you, Apollo said, kindergarten sighed. You know what's worse than being abandoned? Being raised by a man like him. He did what any good father would do. You sound like him, kindergarten shouted. A good father protects his children. If that moron had to put money aside, if he had planned for the future in any way instead of taking his fortunes for granted, then I wouldn't have had to do what was necessary. He lost his breath for a moment. I wouldn't have had to make such a big sacrifice. Behind them on the computer table, the iPad scrolled through photos, all of them the same small child. various moments from 6 months of her life. Why didn't any of you ever kill it? Emma said. That's what I don't understand. You can't kill it, Kindergarten said. Come on. Why? Emma snapped. Kindergarten shook his head. You don't understand. I don't blame you. I mean, you weren't raised like us. You can't change history. All you can do is make the best of what you've inherited. So that's what I did. By taking my son, Emma asked. She pressed a weight into his ankle. Kindergarten raised his hand, pleading. He's alive, he said. You understand he's alive, right? How do you know? Apollo said. He gestured with his chin. Bring me to the computer and I'll show you. Emma took her foot off his ankle, and Apollo grabbed Kindergarten by the arm to lift him. If it hurt to be raised quickly, neither Apollo or Emma seemed concerned. Why is it so hot? Kindergarten asked, looking up. The beams above his head were starting to spit smoke. We set your house on fire, Emma told him. Kindergarten adjusted in his chair, though this was difficult. It seemed like his right arm was losing movement. The whole thing hung loosely from the shoulder. The wound to the chest had brought up more blood. He touched at his ribs. The large patch of dry blood, an older wound, lay there. When Kindergarten returned to the computer, the family on the middle of the screen were at their kitchen table eating breakfast. Basic morning business down in Charleston. They were completely unaware of the vulture in their room. Kindergarten shut off the remote camera feed from the family in South Carolina. Meanwhile, the men on the other screens, the ones who also been watching the remote feed from their location, now gawped openly at the scene in Jorgen Knutson's basement. The 8 men leaned forward, every mouth hanging open. They could see Kindergarten had company, that he had been injured. Were they concerned for a friend, or had they decided this might be an even better show? I'm going to activate Subject Zero, Kindergarten said, as if addressing to the men on the screen instead of the couple in the basement. Maybe it was easier to do all this if he had continued to think of the child by his designation rather than his name. Brian, Apollo said. Kindergarten nodded faintly. The middle of the screen went black, but small numerical counter appeared at the bottom right hand of the screen. There's nothing there, Emma said. Let me move the camera, Kindergarten said. He tapped at 2 keys on the keyboard and the image on the screen swiveled to the side. Now Apollo understood they were looking at an underground scene, packed earth and stone. It's the cave, Apollo said. You put up a camera in that cave? I told you, Kindergarten said. All you can do is make the best of what you've inherited. So what did you do? Emma asked, leaning forward, squinting at the hazy screen. I monetized it, Kindergarten said, clearly proud. My father did his service for free, but that was never how it was supposed to work. The pact that we have, the Knudsen men, would make the ultimate sacrifice, but in return, we would prosper. My father failed to make the proper sacrifice and received no blessing. He kept the troll from rampaging, but that didn't pay him a goddamn mortgage. Let me tell you. So I spread the word on certain specialized boards. For monthly subscriptions, you can log on the camera anytime you want and watch the proceedings. These men are watching all of the time. No act is unknown to them. If you people pull electrical tape over the cameras on their laptops, they could never see. A little thing like this is all it would take, but most of you don't think that far ahead. In Apple, we trust. For guys like you, you need to offer a special treat, a mystery, something they've never seen. That's worth more. The only thing worth anything. I don't have a big pool yet, but I think word will spread. Subject Zero has been our beta test. I'm hoping to set things up so I can take more payments in Bitcoin, harder to trace. Kindergarten slumped back in his chair. Honestly, things could be better. I've only got on camera down there. I couldn't risk being in there long enough to place more than one. What I want to get is 35 millimeter full frame CMOS sensor camera for full HD video capture. Then we'd be able to see everything. Of course, what they're already waiting for is the finale. That's what I advertise anyway. He looked up at Apollo, then at Emma, grinning. The excitement of a promising startup company like acting like a painkiller. You promised they'd get to watch the troll eat our child, Apollo said. Then his face dropped. I'm sorry, Kindergarten said. In the past, it didn't take this long, though. It tries to raise the children, but it's terrible at it. What it wants to feed them, they can't always eat, or it forgets its own strength. But it's been different with Brian. I can't say why exactly. It's like he's being protected, Apollo said, looking at Emma. She hadn't looked away from the screen. Kindergarten peered up at the ceiling. Impossible to ignore the smoke slipping between the floorboards now. A black cloud formed above their heads. Then Kindergarten raised his good arm. But let me show you, he said. I have proof he's okay. I got pictures of him. He reached for the iPad, tapped in his code, and carried on. You'll see, he muttered. Okay. He opened the photo gallery and swiped from one file to the next. You'll see. But before he could find the image, Emma stepped back and raised the mattock. She swung sideways with a better aim this time. The pick lodged into the side of Kindergartner's head, right above his left ear. The power of the attack sent Kindergartner over just like before, but this time when he landed, the force of the fall tore the mattock from his head. When it pulled free, it took a portion of his skull with it. Kindergartner thrashed on the ground, and the side of his head bled wildly. Apollo and Emma watched him from a distance. They could see his brain. It looked like uncooked gamey meat. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat. He seemed lost in the shock, but then his eyes shifted towards Apollo. Kindergartner bled and choked and cried, and even though the house above them had broken into flames, even though the whine of a fire engine could be heard in the distance, even though they had to get back upstairs and escape, they couldn't go yet. They couldn't move as Kindergarten's blood pooled on the ground. It reached the iPad face up in its case. It reached their shoes and soaked their souls. His eyes rolled back into his head until only the whites could be seen. His hand tapped at the ground 3 more times and went still. Okay. All right, family. We're going to stop there. I hope to see you Tuesday as we continue our discussion on what are we doing? Ego. I think we're doing the victim ego, and it's another one. And if you can't make it Tuesday, I hope to have you back here for Thursday Night Book Club. You can enjoy me read to you. I do hope you have some time to enjoy Juneteenth. Celebrate. And again, I want to thank you for your time. Catch us Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I want to remind you that you are confident. You act with courage. You are a powerful being. You are motivated, persistent, and successful. And you can honor yourself. So, and with that, family, I think we're going to wrap the show. I know we're going to wrap the show up. And we're going to get up out of here and start our weekend. Woo, 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 woo. So, peace, family. I know we're going to wrap the show up and we're going to get up out of here and start our weekend. Woo, woo. family.